We're going to look at a monitor today that's very collectible in the retro gaming world. This was considered to be one of the best, if not the best, of the small 14-inch computer monitors that you could use for just about anything. It's got a high resolution tube. It accepts composite video, S-video, RGB video in analog and RGB TTL. So it does them all. It's standard definition, but it is a high resolution tube, and these are very collectible. Let's check it out. This is a Commodore 1084S analog monitor. Let's see if it works. So it's producing kind of a green picture. That's supposed to be color bars. There is a button on the front here that's marked green. Ugh. Well, that looks like crap. That looks a little better. That's better. That audio is pretty noisy. Horizontal phase. Ooh, that doesn't look very good either, that control. These controls are all bad. So, I guess we need to clean those controls and see if we can figure out why it's making so much noise. It's either a bad transistor, or I guess it could be the control itself. Let's get this one apart. This looks to be, the tube looks to be in pretty good shape on this one. There's a little, I thought it was a scratch, but it's not. It's just a little scuff. The dirt on here. Alright, let me get the back off this one. Oh, I think it's got more problems than that. Okay. Actually, yeah, we got problems. Alright, let's pull this one apart. I got something to fix. I have a story to tell you today. I've made it no secret that I'm not a fan of Tesla. I think Tesla got probably one of the worst cars on the road. And I can say that because I know a few people that have got Teslas, and they've had their share of troubles with them. One of my neighbors had two, and well, he only has one now. He finally got tired of fixing his Model X. They kept giving him trouble, and now the Model X is gone. But anyway, they're not my favorite car. You would never see me driving one. And yes, I could afford one. Anyway, today I go out for lunch, and I come back out, and I see this white Tesla that has parked next to me. Well, I shouldn't say they parked next to me, because they parked with their passenger wheel a good 4 inches over the line into my space. So, as I was opening my door to get in, of course it bumped their door. Now, there was a woman sitting in the passenger seat, because I guess whoever she was with went in to pick up takeout or whatever they were doing, but she was just sitting in the car while this was going on. And she kind of opens down the window and she says, "Excuse me, you hit my car." And I said, "So? You're parked over the line. Take a look. Look at where the line is. It's like you're over the line by like 6 inches. It's probably 4 inches, but it doesn't matter. They're over the line." She says, "But you hit my car." I said, "So? Maybe you should learn how to park." She says, "Oh, I'm not driving." I said, "That sounds like a you problem. But you hit my car." Again, learn how to park. I tell you, people, it's oh, look at this. This has got what is this? This is like I think this is to prop it up so that it lifts the back of the monitor up. I think that's what that's for. That will snap in like that. That would allow the monitor to sit tilted. So it was to reduce reflections from office lights, etc. If it was above eye level, you could tilt it a bit towards you. That's what that was for. And then how you operated it was you push this little button in here and it would fold back down. But because it's so old and sticking, doesn't want to move very easily. Of course, other monitors of the day, they had a full tilt base on them, so you didn't need this. You just tilted it. Like that. It's supposed to just lift up, but because it's so old, the plastic is getting all stuck. On the back of this unit, you'll see some controls that may not be familiar to some, such as horizontal size and vertical shift, and the horizontal phase at the front to shift the picture side to side. There's an analog and a TTL input here for the RGB, so you could hook it up to a CGA or a analog output RGB. In TTL mode, that would be for RGB from like an old CGA card. This would not accept VGA or even EGA because it's a fixed frequency monitor. But you could feed it an analog or a digital RGB signal. And then there's two more switches on the back here to switch it between CVBS and RGB. So that would be between the analog input and the RGB input. So this switch, again, would select either analog or digital for the RGB. This one would select between either analog input or the RGB input. And then this one here would select between CVBS, which is chroma, video, blanking, and sync, or your separate, where you had chroma and luminance. S-video, in other words. So your S-video line, you could take a standard S-video cable, cut it, and inside that S-video cable there's two runs of coax, one for luma, one for chroma. And you could break it out as to a separate signal here, audio over here, left and right input. So it's got two speakers on it, I guess. We'll just give it a few well-placed thuds to pop the top off. It's kind of stuck. There we go. Now the back should just pull off, and I'll leave the circuit board behind. What else is hooked up on here? Just the two speakers. There is two speakers on this unit. There should be a plug here to unplug the speaker. Where's the plug in? Right there at the front. Okay, now I can separate, except for the ground, I can separate the back, which has got the two speakers on it, and the stereo headphone plug. Get that out of the way. Here's the monitor. It's all shielded because, you know, back in the day, the FCC was so concerned about any type of interference being created by monitors such as this, so they shielded everything because it could deal with digital signals, TTL signals. So they shielded the video circuits. In analog, you wouldn't have the sharp edges for characters like you would off of a digital monitor. So a lot of these old sets, even though they were basically just a TV, because they could operate viewing a digital signal where there was a very, very sharp on-off state that could radiate, I guess is what they figured. So I can see if there's any dates on this tube. What tube has this got in it? This has a, it's a Phillips tube. Interesting. Where was this tube made? Made in Taiwan. But it's a Phillips M34EAQ10X. So this is actually a fine pitch, high resolution color tube. So this set would have actually pretty damn good picture, especially if you fed it with an S-video source from a high resolution, like even a digital 8 or a mini DV or super VHS or high 8. This tube will actually deliver a very good picture. Got a ground wire here to ground this to the board, which limits how far you can remove the board without removing the ground wire. See, they shielded everything up quite well on these monitors. I want to get to those controls at the front because I do need to clean them. They're all dirty, so first things first, I will remove this ground wire, and rather than cut it, I'm just going to unsolder it. Then I can put it back on. Not that it's really necessary, but look at this. They've even got chokes. They've got ferrite beads on all the ground wires. There's one over here. There's another two of them here. There's a little toroidal choke over here. These are the ground wires. That's to prevent radiation through the ground. Because in theory, the interference that was picked up by the shield would be transferred to the ground wire, which would be connected to the house ground through the 3-prong ground connector, and it could basically radiate through the house wiring through the grounding system. So they put ferrite beads on the ground wires themselves. As you can see, this one here, there's two of them here, there's two of them here, two of them here, and this toroidal over here, just to decouple any RF signals that could make its way back to the ground and radiate out and cause interference to somebody's $2.49 AM radio. Because that's what it was all about back then. It was protecting AM radio. Because everyone knows that's what was susceptible to interference. You weren't going to interfere with someone's FM radio. You were going to interfere with AM radio. Fast forward 40 years, and no one cares about AM radio. Because AM radio is pretty much, I wouldn't say it's done, but it certainly appears that way. You know, back in the day when I was growing up, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, there were lots of music stations on AM. They even had AM stereo. And today, well, there's very, very little on AM, period. It's usually talk radio or news. It's about all you see on AM these days. So there's very little on there. And stations are shutting down left, right, and center. These are the controls I want to get to. They're all at the front. They're all relatively easy to get to. We're going to spray this down with some neutral, clean these controls up, and I got to see why this thing's breaking up, because when I tapped it, it was cutting in and out. So there's got to be a connection on here somewhere. This set uses a switching power supply, which is unusual. A lot of TVs of this era used a linear supply, but the reason that they've done it on this is because you've got a grounded chassis for one, but you've got AV input, so you couldn't use a hot chassis. Whereas a lot of televisions of the day was a hot chassis, and they just used the flyback transformer to derive all the lower voltages. This one here, the flyback transformer, is only producing the high voltage for the tube and the focus voltage, and probably the screen voltage. All the other lower voltages that are used to operate the set itself are being generated by this small transformer down here. Looking to see what other plugs I got to undo on here so that I can slide this board out a little more. And I got a ground wire up here, yoke plug there. Okay, should have enough room to pull this board out completely, which I do. I want to be able to turn on the side because I do want to look at it, see if we can spot any bad connections. First things first though, I'm going to give all these controls a little shot of neutral to clean them up. So first I'll do this volume control back here. I should be able to get some cleaner into the bottom of it where the pins come out. That's the green switch. I got a couple of these monitors. I got another one, a different model. And I know that these monitors do pull in top dollar, so if I wanted to unload this monitor, I would have no trouble. None getting rid of it. And they actually go for a few dollars. Again, because it's a proper RGB monitor. There's a bunch of them right now on eBay for listed between $500 and $860 right now as of production date on this. gives you an idea what these monitors have been going for. And these ones do go for big money just because they're what everybody wants for retro gaming, because they've got RGB as well as composite and S-video. Okay, that should take care of those controls. I am going to clean the controls on the back as well. These ones back here. I'll give them all a shot of cleaner and spin them a bit. Looks like someone's done some work on here before. One side of the switch has been jumpered, so maybe this switch had a problem in the past and someone put a jumper wire over it just so that the switch, it only switched one side. This switch might be no good too. I just switched it and now it doesn't want to latch, so the switch might be on its last legs. I may have to jumper the other side. Maybe that's why it was breaking up when I tapped it. Maybe the switch itself is foobar. One side for sure is. So the other side might also be problematic. I'm just going to look at the board here and see if I can spot any connections in any of the deflection circuits, because that's where I would expect to find them. I would expect to find connections in, say, the horizontal drive circuit, etc., which is over here. Closely look at this, because of the way that the picture kind of broke up, it almost looked like it was losing drive. And you don't want to lose horizontal drive. That's a good way to blow the output transistor. I don't see any connections here. Looks like this one here has been redone at one point. That's the output from the drive transformer. This is the primary side of the horizontal drive transformer. That would be the drive transistor there. It doesn't look bad. I'm going to redo it just for the hell of it. But the output side, the secondary side, does look like it's been redone. And I may have done this. I've had this monitor for years. So I may have done this before. You guys have never seen it, though. I was given this probably 25 years ago, maybe more. Had a friend that ran a computer shop, and he actually gave this to me. When he was closing his shop up, he gave me a bunch of his old stuff that he was getting rid of. The drive transformers were always issues. Same with this little coil here. If you get any cracked solder on here, you can lose the drive or get distortion on the drive signal that goes to the output transistor and cause it to stick in the on state, and then it will blow immediately and you end up with a dead set. I'm going to check that switch, because I have a sneaking suspicion that that switch might have been why this was breaking up like it was when I tapped it. Let's just see whether that switch is any good. So this is the power switch. It's off. Ah, see, it won't even stay on now. So I guess what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to just bridge that switch. I don't have a switch, and it's not really all that important that there's a power switch on it. A monitor like this typically would be controlled with a power bar. But it's not going to work without that switch being on, and I need to get it turned on so that I can at least see if there's a problem, another problem with it. Okay, now I've got a unit that'll stay on as soon as I plug it in. I want to take a look at the picture and see whether I've fixed the problem with the picture that was cutting in and out. Okay, can you see the tube? Can we see the screen? All right, let me plug it in. Well, let's get everything that's metal that could short out of the way. Nothing under here that can short anything out. Let's turn it on. I heard it hissing. Oh, looks like crap. Is it one of my switches at the back here that's gone bad? Still got a problem. Oh, now it's okay. Yeah, we got a broken connection in here somewhere. It's right over here on the video input. See where I'm wiggling? I'm just wiggling the input at the back here. We have a connection down near the video input, so let's just take a little closer look in that section of the circuit. It's under the shielded circuit where those connectors go in, so I'm going to have to remove the shield just so I can see it. It's probably right in this area here. The shield is soldered down in multiple places, so I gotta undo it. Again, overkill. Just want to make things more difficult for someone who's servicing it. I don't think this is working that well. Well, it's taking solder off it, but there's so much on here. I should have said to the lady that was in the Tesla that was parked across the line, preventing me from getting into my car. I should have said to her when she bitched about me touching her door. It's not like I slammed my car door into it. I didn't want to scratch my own paint. It made contact with the door when I was opening it up. What I should have said to her is, "Lady, you're lucky I wasn't driving my work truck, because I wouldn't have cared whether I left the big dent in your door or not with that." Yes, these shields were a pain in the ass. I'm certainly glad that they don't shield everything nearly as much today as they did back then. Because it's a real pain to get into these things sometimes with all the shielding they've got on them. You're kidding. The amount of solder they put on this thing to hold it in place. See, they've got it soldered down in so many places. You would never see that on a modern unit. The older LCD TVs had tons and tons of shielding on them as well. That was not a shock. That was just me poking my finger. On something sharp. Okay. More shield over here. Is it here? Did I get it? Oh, not one more here. There. And then this final one. There. All that work just to get the shield off so that I can inspect the board for bad connections, which I know that I'm going to find right back here, because I can see them. I can see it. It's winking at me. It's right here. You can see where it's bad. right there and right there. All that work just to get to the video input. And people wonder why they would get a bill for $100 to fix something like this. Say, yeah, but it was just one connection. How come so much? I think this one's okay. While I've got it apart, I'm going to just go over it and take a look and make sure that there's nothing else that's broken or cracked that's ready to fail. All right, everything else looks to be okay. So what I've done is I've gone and I've just taken off the solder from these ground points so that I can fit the shield back in, because there's some tabs that fit into the actual board itself. I want to make sure that I get all those tabs into the correct place, like that. And then I can resolder it in place just like it was at the factory. I don't know whether this shield is providing any auxiliary ground for anything. Sometimes they did. You know, some sets like Panasonic were good at that. RCA were good at that too. The Mexican made ones, because you know everything made in Mexico is just great quality, right? But they actually would use the shield as part of the circuit. So if you took the shield off, you opened up your ground in some of the circuit, and then it wouldn't work very well, or at all. It made for fun times when you're trying to service something. You pulled the shield off and you wonder why it wasn't working, and only to find out that that shield was providing a ground connection for one of the circuits, and without it in place, the set wouldn't work. I don't think that's the case here, but it certainly was on some units. Okay, turn it back on. That looks pretty good. But if I tap the board, it's not doing anything now. And I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to adjust it as best I can. We'll get the width and everything set up here. One hand on the set, one hand in your pocket when you're working on anything that could give you a jolt. And a CRT TV can certainly give you a jolt. Alright, let's check the other controls out on the side here. This one is the horizontal width. That's nice because you can scan this thing right to the edge, which is nice. See that? You can underscan it, and you can underscan it this way too. Control. I just sprayed some cleaner in there. I guess it's still a bit of dirt. And bring that down. Where's the horizontal? There's the centering. This is nice because you can scan this. Like, you can underscan it. You guys can't see what I'm doing, but you can underscan the set. So I've got a horizontal or vertical size control here, which is still a bit dirty, but nothing you really need to touch on a regular basis. We got vertical centering, so you can scan this, and if you want to see the edges, you can actually bring the horizontal width in, so you can see the edges of the screen. That way you can see the entire picture with a bit of a border. what I used to do when I set these up is I set them up so that it was just touching the edge. Just so that I had maximum screen size. So just touching the edge of the screen. You know, that actually looks very good. Actually looks excellent. Here's some dot crawl you can see. You can see the dot crawl going up here. That's from interaction between the luminance and the chroma, which is what S-Video would eliminate. If I hook this up, well, like not from this color bar generator because it's just a composite generator, but if I hook this up, if these color bars were generated from an S-Video source, and I can, which is component, and I connected them up directly, you would not see this. Now, if I put this on my plasma set, you won't see these either, because my plasma set uses a 3D comb filter, which will completely eliminate that. But that's an example of the mutual interference that you get between the chroma and the luminance in composite video, because of the interlacing, just the way the chroma interlaces with the video. You get it at specific frequencies, but color bars is a prime example where you can actually see it. And if this had been a color bar generated from a component source as opposed to a composite, and it was fed to this monitor over YC, you would not get that. It would just be a sharp edge between the green and the magenta and the cyan and the green bar, or actually between all of them, but these are the ones you really see it on, as these ones here. But if I were to record these color bars on VHS or Betamax or 8mm and play them back, you would not see it, because those formats of tape do not have the resolution in the video circuit to provide that cross color. SVHS could, as could high 8. If I recorded color bars onto a high 8 or a super VHS through the composite input, you would see that, but regular VHS you would not. I think I can throw this one back together and we'll hook up the speakers again and make sure that they are actually working too, because I obviously can't hear them with them not plugged in. I know someone's probably going to ask in the comments, am I going to change the switch? The answer to that is no. I'm not going to change the switch. First of all, I'm not going to be using the monitor, but if I were to use the monitor for, say, putting my Pac-Man game on, which I might do, by the way, for testing today when I get it set back up, I wouldn't bother. I mean, it's the way it is now. The switch was a pain anyway. It's at the back, so it's like almost like an afterthought. Like, who's going to reach around the back to turn it on and off? Anybody who's going to use something like this, including myself, either going to unplug it or have it on a power bar that switches off when I kill the power to the power bar. Got to plug all these plugs back in wherever they went. And figure out where all these plugs came from. This is way over here. Is where this one goes. I know I'm not using the new microphone, by the way, today. I'm using the microphone on the camera. Maybe I'll switch to the other one just so you guys can get a direct comparison. So I shoot this half of the video with the built-in microphone, and then I'll put the wireless one on right now so you can hear the difference. So this is the wireless mic now that I've got clipped on. So you guys can hear a direct comparison between the two. This is either 6 of one and half a dozen the other. It doesn't matter to me whether I'm wearing a wireless mic or whether I'm using the mic on the camera. Got some ground wires to plug in here. Where was that? This was the degaussing coil. This one went back over here somewhere, down there. And there was I think it was a ground wire here somewhere, was there not? Just this one, maybe. Degaussing coil, and then the speaker that plugs in up front. And then this ground wire. Yeah, that's good enough. It looks pretty sad, but it's stuck. It's just a ground wire after all. Okay, get the back up onto here now, and then we'll test it again once I've got the back on. The back had a ground wire on it as well, if I'm not mistaken. It had a ground wire that plugged in Where the heck did that one go? I think it was over here. That one plugged in, I think it was down here. And the speaker, see, another choke on here. Speaker plugged in up front. I got a 20-inch Sony CRT that is broken. I got to work on one of these days too. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. It was working. There's one I used in my secondary edit suite, which I don't use anymore. It's at my storage locker, and I don't use it. I used to use it for doing the odd PAL. I had my PAL equipment there and a converter, so I used to use that space just to transfer the odd tape, because conversion from PAL these days is pretty much non-existent. Used to do a lot of PAL tapes to NTSC and vice versa. In fact, I did them for years using AGW1 Panasonic, which was an expensive machine back in the day, but it, of course, suffered the same fate as all the Panasonic absolute garbage machines. It broke. It fell apart. Well, capacitors failed, is what happened, which is what happens on all of those machines, is caps go bad. Caps go bad. Surface mounted caps went bad in the converter board, and surface mounted caps went bad on some of those glass modules, and I just retired the machine. And again, the bottom basically fell out of conversion work probably 20 years ago. We were busy as anything back in the 80s, 90s, and into the early 2000s. But once broadband came around and people started working with digital stuff and stopped using tape, then converting tapes over became less and less common. I was going to say less and less profitable, but there was no profit in it at the end. When we started doing conversions, the machine itself, when I bought my machine, I think $2,500 US for it. 2,500 or 3,000 US, I forget. It was a lot of money. So we got a lot of money. We were getting to do a PAL to NTSC or NTSC to PAL transfer. There was one place in town that started up, and they were charging $80 per hour, and they had terrible quality. And then when I got my AGW1, we were getting $50 an hour, $50 per hour, $100 for a 2-hour tape, $150 if it was a 3-hour tape, and kept quite busy doing it. And then as more people got cheap machines like the Iwa M110, which was a piece of junk, that was a $500 machine, but people would buy it themselves because they would put up with the quality being poor because they didn't want to pay the price. And converting PAL to NTSC, I think got down to, we were down to about $20 an hour is what we got down to. And then it became $10 an hour to convert PAL. And in the last couple years, it was, I think, $10 an hour is what we were getting to do PAL to NTSC. And this is before DVD. This is when everything was going back to tape. You're giving it back to the customer on a VHS tape. But the guys started buying those cheap garbage Iwa M110s that were terrible, and people were paying them $10 an hour to convert tapes. So then the rest of us dropped our prices as well, and at least gave better quality than those junky machines could ever do. This is looking good, this monitor. This is looking really good. I am going to go and grab my little Pac-Man game and we'll plug it in here and play around with it for a bit. But this monitor's looking good. Oh, oops. My battery's dead on here. My batteries might be dead on the main unit. I have to check those. I think my batteries are dead. What do you think? You think the battery's any good? What's the date on this battery? When did it say best before? Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not an old battery. This is a new battery. Best of installed by March 2029. It's August 2024, and that battery is leaking. How are the rest of them? Are the rest of them leaking too? Yep. They're all leaking. Now, this worked. I used this not that long ago when I was testing a TV, and this worked. And now it doesn't. Those batteries went bad in that time. This one's still good. I bet you they're the same batteries that are in here as well. Let's see. I bet you they're the same ones, and I wonder if they're leaking as well. We'll find out pretty quick. Oh, look. Look at this. They're all gone bad. Unbelievable. Well, it's believable. These ones should go back to Costco. I will send these back to Costco with the wife the next time she goes there. She bought a pack of Kirkland Signature batteries, and I grabbed 8 of them for this. And yeah, they're still working, but they're leaking. Let's check the voltage on them. 1.46. They're all about the same, voltage-wise. All right, I guess I gotta find some new batteries. We'll use Great Value white vinegar to clean up the terminals. I'll just pour a little bit into here, into the cap. Use that to dip in the Q-tips. We're going to use this to clean up the terminals that are contaminated, so that the new batteries won't go bad right away. Not new batteries, they're old batteries, but you can see it in the bottom here, bubbling away. Because of course vinegar is slightly acidic. That will counteract the alkaline, corrosive crap that leaked out of the batteries. So those two look okay now. We'll check the other ones in the game itself. I think there was a couple that were leaking in here too. Yes, there was. There was 3 of them that were leaking on this one. Using the other end, not going to contaminate my vinegar. You can see it bubbling away. If I zoom the camera in a bit. All right, time for the real arcade game experience. Well, as good as this is going to do it. This is a game that I picked up a year or so ago. I got it for 10 bucks. I've got two of them. Actually, I got three. I've got one that's just Pac-Man and Super Pac-Man and stuff, and it's wired right to the TV. And I have another one, which is the Amazing Spider-Man 3 that I bought at, I bought them down at Circuit City back in, I think, 2008 or so. Bought them for my kids. They played those things like crazy. This one I found on Facebook, Ms. Pac-Man, but it's got Pole Position and a bunch of other games on here as well. These come from 2004, Jack's Pacific, and they basically licensed these games, put them on these little controllers. This one's a wireless controller, so it's got a wireless receiver. This is the receiver, and then the game is this. And well, actually, this is the game. This is the controller. This links wirelessly. If I turn it on, you should see LEDs blasting, which we do. In fact, they're so bright that, well, I guess you don't really see them lighting up the... They are... Oh, they're not... It's because they're not transmitting now. Now they are. You see, they're so bright that they actually will light the room. If it was dark in here, you could see by this. And you can still see them. They're pretty bright. Anyway, I can select the game that I want. And press the fire button, I think. Come on, I want to get you. Oh, you would go that way. Oh, I got one of them. I might get two this time. Oh, missed him. Uh-oh. Ah. 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 So as you can see, for a gaming monitor, this is one of the better ones that you can find because it can do RGB component video, or I should say S video, which is the type of component. It can do RGB, it can do TTL RGB, analog RGB, and it can also do component as S video or composite. So it can do them all. Anyway, it's looking good. So another good monitor to hang on to. Say, this is mine, I'm not getting rid of this one. Unless someone walked up to me and made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, then I might unload it. But these were great monitors. The 1084S. Even to play video, this is a DVD playing. The picture off this is excellent. As good as I've seen from anything. Being a high resolution tube, this actually has a resolution much sharper than the Sony Trinitron, because Trinitron actually was quite a low resolution monitor. And I know my exposure might be a little bit out here. Let's see if I can fix that on the camera. There, that's probably a little bit better. Not quite as much blowing out up on the camera, picking it up. But the video quality is actually very good on this monitor. Anyway, it's looking great. This little monitor has a fantastic picture. With very little blooming, the tube is in really good shape. Oops, that's the color control. That's the tint control there. And of course, we're going to make it green. Well, we can make it green. We can make it green this way too by engaging night shot. Now we can have green this way. Anyway, yeah, it looks great. If you find one of these monitors, these ones are certainly a very collectible monitor. All these little Commodore monitors that could do analog and digital and composite as well as RGB. Very collectible for the retro gamers. These are the monitors that people want because they can do everything. And that's why they command the kind of money that they do when people sell them. I've seen these listed for several $100s. I saw somebody listing a Sony broadcast, a little 12-inch broadcast monitor, and they were asking, oh, they're on drugs. They were asking $8,000 for it. And I thought, yeah, right. You know, if they get it, I say good for them. If some idiot wants to offer them $8,000 for an old broadcast monitor that was pulled out of some TV station and it probably has a gajillion hours on it, if they can get that kind of money for it, all the power to them. As they say, there's a sucker born every minute. But these ones here typically do go for quite a bit. And say, I'm not in any hurry to unload it, but if somebody comes up to me and offers me some ridiculous amount of money for it, I'm also not stupid. I would take it in a heartbeat. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.